Okay, let's learn how to put our instruments together. I'm going to put them all in one video. So what you're about to see is a list of times in the video to skip to for the instrument that you play. And that's going to happen now. Hi, flutes. You have three parts to your instrument: the body, the head joint, and the foot or the boot. Now, when you are putting your flute together, you will start by holding the body and you'll get the boot and you're going to put that on the bottom. Now, it is very tempting to try and line these rods up, but that is wrong. You want this rod on the foot to line up with the middle of this key. Right there. There it is. Good. Once you've done that, we're going to move to the other side and get the head joint. You're just going to slide it in. If it's really hard to slide in, you should have some grease in your case that you can put on this part, and you can rub it all around there, and then it'll make it easier to put in. So you're going to put it in there. You want to line up this hole with this key, which is kind of hard. You kind of have to like look at it like this and twist it. Some of you on your flute will have an arrow right here and an arrow right here that you have to line up those two arrows, but not every flute has that. As you can see, mine does not. So I just have to try and line the hole up with that. There, you have a flute. All right, clarinets, you have like a lot of parts to your instrument. The first thing you want to do, you're going to take your reed and put it in your mouth and just start sucking on it. Like this. While you do that, you're going to keep the reed in your mouth the whole time. First, you're going to take the upper joint and the lower joint. Upper joint has these side keys right here. Lower joint has these pinky keys on the bottom. Now you're going to put these two joints together like so, but you have to be so careful because on the side, there's this key right here, and you do not want to bend that key. And on this side, there's a key right under here that you can kind of see me pointing to. You have to line those up very carefully. So I grab from the top right here and the bottom right here, and I twist and push until I see those two line up perfectly. You can kind of see the edge lined up and down. Once you have those two lined up, next you can put your bell on the bottom. Easy peasy. After that is your barrel. It looks like a barrel, so it's called a barrel. And you just stick that on top. And then last is your mouthpiece. And you stick that on top of the barrel. Now you have a full clarinet assembled, but you still need to put your reed on. So you can take your reed out of your mouth. I'm going to take my mouthpiece off to show you this part. So when I put my reed on, you want the thick part at the bottom and the thin part at the top. And you'll notice the edge of the reed, which by the way, never touch it. But you'll notice that the edge of the reed is barely under the edge of the mouthpiece. You can see a little black over the top of the reed there. That's the mouthpiece coming over the top of the reed. So you just want to barely have a tiny little line of black over the top of the reed. And then you want to make sure that you can see this line right here. That should be facing outward. So once you have that on there, you're going to want to grab your ligature. And when you put your ligature on, the screws always go to the right of the reed. And when I put the ligature on the mouthpiece, I'm going to check and make sure that I have the wider side down. I want it to be wider on the downside and skinnier on the upside. So I should be able to look through and be able to tell which side is wider. I'm going to put the wider side down over the top of the mouthpiece, very carefully, not touching my reed until it's nice and snug. I have a metal ligature, so my screws are going to go in front. If you have one of those like leather ligatures, the screw is going to go in the back. But either way, the screw should always be facing to the right. And you're going to want to tighten it, but you don't have to tighten it so much. You just have to tighten it so that the reed stays in its place. So there you go. And if you did it right, you should be able to get a sound out of it. It may not be a good sound, but it's a sound. Now when you have your mouthpiece and your reed on here, you want to make sure that your reed is lined up with this key right here. So you want to make sure that this is a straight line from here to here. And that's how you put together a clarinet. Now when you put your reed away, be very, very careful. When you're done playing, you take your ligature off first. Then you take your reed off and you put it in the case immediately, and make sure when you take your reed out of the case, you know which direction it goes back in so that you don't like put it in the wrong way or crush your reed, okay? Usually, if you have one of those plastic sleeves, you put the skinny end in first, and you have to be so careful when you slide it in, okay? If you have a different case, just make sure you remember how you took it out. All right, saxophones. So I'm going to teach you how to put your instrument together, and then I'm actually going to steal clips from the clarinet video on how to put your reed on your mouthpiece, because it's the same process. So to put your instrument together, you take the body of your saxophone, and here's the neck. Now the thing you need to be careful of is that there's a key right here on the top of the body of the saxophone that goes underneath this part of the neck. So you want to be careful. When you put the neck on, twist slowly and just push gently, and it should fall into place as long as you aren't like mashing this down or pressing any keys down here. Make sure you aren't pressing anything. If you're having a really hard time getting this in, there's a screw on the front of the saxophone right here that you can undo, and it'll make it easier. So once that's in, then you're going to want to put your mouthpiece on. Now for the saxophone, it's much easier to put the mouthpiece on after you've already put the reed on the mouthpiece. I'm going to show you how to put the mouthpiece on the horn first, and then show you how to put the reed on the mouthpiece. So to put the mouthpiece on the horn, see this cork right here? Your mouthpiece is going to go on that cork, the round side on the cork, and you're going to push and twist. Now you do not want to push it all the way to the end of the cork. It's not going to happen. So you just push it on until it's nice and firm. It's not like wiggling. The mouthpiece just stays where it stays. Notice I still have a lot of cork left. I didn't push all the way to the end. I just went about halfway up the cork. So once you've done that and you have your reed and your ligature and everything on there, your saxophone is assembled. Now your instrument should have come with a neck strap. That's just gonna help you hold up the instrument because it's a pretty heavy instrument. So you're gonna put the neck strap around your neck. Then you're gonna take the hook and you're gonna clip it to this ring on the back of the horn, like so. See how it's attached now to that ring right there? And that'll help me hold the instrument up. Now, with your neck strap, it may not start where you need it. You'll see that for me, the mouthpiece comes up to my neck. That's a no-go. So you want to adjust the neck strap. You can see right here that I have a little thing that lets me pull to adjust how high the neck strap is. Now it's way too high because it comes up to my forehead. So that's probably not going to work. So I'm just going to pull down until the mouthpiece rests right at my mouth. There we go. So make sure you're not bending down like this to reach your mouthpiece. And make sure you're not pushing your head back like this to reach your mouthpiece. You just want it to come right up to your mouth. So when I put my reed on, you want the thick part at the bottom and the thin part at the top. And you'll notice the edge of the reed, which by the way, never touch it. But you'll notice that the edge of the reed is barely under the edge of the mouthpiece. You can see a little black over the top of the reed there. That's the mouthpiece coming over the top of the reed. So you just want to barely have a tiny little line of black over the top of the reed. And then you want to make sure that you can see this line right here. That should be facing outward. So once you have that on there, you're going to want to grab your ligature. And when you put your ligature on, the screws always go to the right of the reed. And when I put the ligature on the mouthpiece, I'm going to check and make sure that I have the wider side down. I want it to be wider on the downside and skinnier on the upside. So I should be able to look through and be able to tell which side is wider. I'm going to put the wider side down over the top of the mouthpiece, very carefully, not touching my reed until it's nice and snug. I have a metal ligature, so my screws are going to go in front. If you have one of those like leather ligatures, the screw is going to go in the back. But either way, the screw should always be facing to the right. And you're going to want to tighten it, but you don't have to tighten it so much You just have to tighten it so that the reed stays in its place. So there you go. And if you did it right, you should be able to get a sound out of it. It may not be a good sound, but it's a sound. And saxophone players, just keep in mind that when you put your mouthpiece on your instrument, the reed is going to be facing down, straight down toward the floor, parallel with the ground. That's it, now go have fun. Okay, trumpets, get ready. This is really complicated. Take your instrument out of the case. Take your mouthpiece. Put it in there. Give it a very small, slight twist. You're done. Wow. Trombones, you have 3 parts to your instrument: the bell, the slide, and the mouthpiece. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your bell and put it bell up. And you can kind of rest it on your shoulder like this. Then you want to take your slide, and you're going to put your slide so that this button right here is facing down. Have your bell facing up, your slide facing with the button down. You're going to put it in just like that. Now most trombones have a little spinny thing right here. You're just gonna tighten that all the way to the bottom. There we go. So your trombone should look like this. So my slide is down, my bell is above it. That's what it should look like. Now, your mouthpiece, there's only one part of the instrument that's still open, and that's right here. That's where your mouthpiece is gonna go. Take your mouthpiece, set it in there, give it a small twist, and you're good to go. That's how you build a trombone. All right, baritones, get ready. This is super complicated. See this part right here? Take your mouthpiece, put it in, give it a small twist, you're ready to go. Wow. Most bell kits are built differently, but most snare stands are going to be around the same. So you have a snare stand here. You'll notice that the drum goes inside this part, so you have to bring out the arms of the stand wide enough to fit the circumference of the drum. And then you'll want to tighten it to the point where it's holding the drum pretty firm. I can still get the drum out of the stand, as you can see, but you want it to be pretty secure in there. Now when you set it down, you want it to be set down at a height that's about the hips. You don't want it too high because that's going to force you to have really bad technique with your hands. And you don't want it too low because same thing's going to happen, really bad technique. So right about at the waist. And the same goes for the bells. You can see that these ones are a little too low for me, but that's just the size of the cart. If I scoot down here, this is about the height that I want to be at so that I can play my bells. So that is how the instruments get put together. Hope that helps. If you have questions, please ask, because I don't want you to mess anything up. So have fun putting your instrument together. Practice doing it several times so that you get used to it. Good luck.